everybody. This is Simkov, and I'm joined by co-host Handsome Dan. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for having me on to co-cast this.
Absolutely, mate. It is absolute pleasure. We are looking at the top 8 of the Australian Discord League, Season 5. This is the first top 8 game, and we'll hope to bring most of the bracket games to you here and on Twitch, and then we'll publish them on YouTube later. Today we have Soshi Kurai versus Subversive, 2 Scorpion players, and the deck lists are actually closed, so they've been submitted prior to the bracket being formed. So they remain the same deck throughout the whole tournament, so people will no doubt scout this match. But they are closed off, so the 2 players don't know what is going on. And just as a bit of a note, Subversive did beat Soshi Kurai during the league. So Soshi Kurai's obviously out for a bit of revenge.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Were they allowed to switch decks in between the league and the cup?
Yeah, absolutely. So the format of this was there was 5 rounds of Swiss, and throughout those 5 rounds of Swiss, you're allowed to swap your deck. You knew what clans other people were playing, similar to the Global Discord League. You're allowed to switch your deck list up as much as you wanted to, but then once the top 8 was formed, deck list was submitted, and they've got to remain throughout the whole tournament.
All right, and are we playing with the new restricted list now?
Yes, absolutely. New restricted list, new roles, new everything.
All right, so this should be spicy. Okay, so Subversive, we see flip a Hidden Moon Dojo on turn 1, but it's in the corner, so not that great.
Yeah, it's frustrating when you see it there, but I mean, it's still can be a fate advantage. I think the Namiya Mystic is not a flash turn 1 character versus in the mirror.
Yeah, so we're going to see this Manipulator bot, and then a Noble Enforcers comes out for Soshi Kurai. He's going to put 3 Fate on it, spend 3 of his Honor, and that'll activate his box.
Yeah, so this is a very, very strong start for Kurai, very aggressive. Interestingly, it's unlikely we'll see Fate Worse than Death, so that Ignoble Forces, no doubt we'll see a lot of value over the first 2 or 3 turns with that character.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about Ignoble Enforcers, that once you buy it, and especially on turn 1, it sticks there for almost the entire game. It's 3 Fate is old, and in general, you're looking at other rings that aren't Void Ring against Scorpion, a little more higher value, so it really just stays there forever.
Yeah, and look, there's at the end of this phase, there's a 1 honor differential between the 2 players, and a 5 like a 3 fated 4/4. So I feel like it was a advantage Soshi Kurai, but there is Subversive does
Yeah, it's the magic of the Scorpion box, right? Where you can just spend as much honor as you want, really, and get it back. I mean, Subversive obviously has the same box, so one thing you do see in Scorpion mirrors is that'll honor sort of change hands a lot with the boxes.
It does make ring selection a little trickier. You do have to consider it. So Soshi Kurai may consider not bothering about the air ring on turn 1. It might be fairly worthless to him. And I guess we're looking here, Subversive is the first player. Is there any merit in passing this first conflict, or do you think poking is actually quite useful now?
Well, I think that you should probably just go ahead and poke. He does have the Hidden Moon Dojo in play, so he can buy another character if he needs somebody. At this point in time, right now, whether it's the Mia Mystic or the Manipulator, it's going to be a 1/1, so
yeah,
it's not going to make too much of a difference. Might as well just go ahead and poke here and try to find a place to start farming.
Yeah, potentially we might see a aggressive Banzai on this Manipulator, or a Fine Katana. He's hit Upholding Authority, which is obviously the nightmare to see. Your first flip up, especially.
Yeah. Oh my goodness!
Wow.
All right, so he didn't defend, hit duty with his Earth Ring, and so that's
right on target. Subversive has declared the win already.
Yeah, that's never what you want to see there, right? So he had 10 cards in his hand, and he hit the 1 card that really makes a big impact in this mirror.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right, so I think we should see at least 1 break this turn, right? From Soshi. This is going to be a very powerful turn, I think, for Soshi. He's going to come into the the turn 2. I think hopefully with at least one break and probably some sort of, I don't know what ring's actually worth claiming here. Like,
Yeah, I mean, none of them, none of them are particularly impactful. I guess maybe you just go ahead and go fire. Yeah, what he's gonna do here, just go fire, get that Ignoble Enforcer's honored at least, make it a 5/5 instead of a 4/4. Not too big of a difference, but uh, maybe depending on his splash, it could come into play later. If he's playing Crane Splash, for example, might be easy to set up a Noble Sacrifice later.
So they are both playing Seeker of Air, so Mark of Shame is an option. That might be something that they're playing, and obviously Soul Beyond Reproach. Yeah. I think that in the mirror, the Crane Splash with Soul Beyond Reproach can make a huge difference. So we'll see if either of them pick that soon enough.
All right, yeah, we see no defenders in a pass here, so Subversive is going to lose that fire ring comp. He will go ahead and lose an honor for unopposed, and the dishonor is going to go on the Bayushi Manipulator. That's actually a pretty good idea there too. You turn off Forge Edict by dishonoring that manipulator.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Meek Informant will come out here, and so we do see the Crane Splash for Soshi Kurai.
So it's probably very smart as the first conflict to use the manipulator. If you know you want to break with your second one by turning off the Forged Edict with your first conflict, it does make that second conflict all so much easier.
Yeah, and so hand-wise, we do see a assassination. We have a Kachi calling in favors 2 censures, a 4 shame, and 2 noble sacrifices, as well as a steward of law. So some spice in his hand. Not a lot that's going to come into play in this turn, though. There's about it's 8 dead cards in that hand right now. So
yeah, you've got Assassinate and I guess the Stewie plus for shame, but I don't think you're going to be using Stewie plus for shame on the Meek Informant. you want to see something a little bit meatier before you go busting out that combo. I guess he does pick up a Fate here from Manicure Gardens, or 2 Fate, I guess, with the Seeker roll as well. He's rolling.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Although, unfortunately, there's not much you can play with that 2 Fate. I guess you can go ahead and play the Steward of Law if you really felt like. But even if you play the Steward of Law into this conflict, it's not going to be. You're still going to be losing the conflict since it's going to be tied.
Yeah, I think that Void Ring is an unfortunate ring. Like, it does strip a Fate off the Enforcers, but the Enforcers is still around for at least another turn, probably more. So I don't think you want to spend too many resources defending this particular conflict. I think you choose your battles, pick your battles.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about earlier, right? 3 Fate is a lot of Fate, and so that one Fate that's being taken off on the Void Ring really not impactful. But honestly, neither were any of the other rings. I guess you could have gone water, maybe restand that manipulator, but it's blanked right now since it's dishonored, so no real point in that. But the Enforcers now is going to go in. This is going to be a military conflict. We know that he doesn't have any military pumps in his hand, but he does have assassination, as well as the 4 Shame Steward of Law combo that he can play into this conflict if he needs to. And he might, since there's a Cunning Magistrate coming down now.
The Cunning Magistrate is a tricky one to deal with. It is a Way of the Scorpion's not very useful here, so I'm just considering what are the ways that the Cunning Subversive can dishonor the Enforcers. I think there's Mark of Shame, but for Shame's not going to work because Cunning Magistrate's not a courtier.
Yeah, and so Soshi Kurai is going to go ahead and drop the Steward of Law into the conflict. So the Cunning Magistrate is not really going to do anything. Now that nobody can be dishonored in this conflict, you can't blank anybody. And Soshi Kurai also has the 4 Shame ready to bow the Cunning Magistrate, so he can go for that break.
I guess though that if Soshi Kurai has the Subversive has an Assassinate, it can't be forged. So
yeah, that is assassinate that Steward of Law. He decides to gain a Fate instead first, but he knows his hand. He knows that he has a window to assassinate still if he needs to.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if he was going to assassinate, he probably should have done it there instead of gaining the Fate, because now the Steward of Law can just go ahead and bow the Cunning Magistrate out.
And has done. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not super considered play. I guess he does save an honor, but it was 5 Fate to save an honor.
Yeah, so well, you save the honor, but then the other thing that happens here too is that you force the steward law to come out in this conflict as opposed
Yeah.
to. So obviously the steward law is going to stick around for a little bit longer, but there is something to be said for making your opponent have to go ahead and play the cards that he has, so that way he doesn't have it in a more maybe for example, Subversive doesn't have the Forge Edict right now, or he just wants to he might know that Soshi Kurai is probably only on 2 steward law of the way as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
But some thinking going on here for Subversive. I think at this point, I dojo break on turn 1,
Now,
but I
believe
don't
the
know
game
how
is
much.
supposed to be timed, but they haven't got a timer down. Maybe we'll just move on with that. That's supposed to be 90-minute games, but
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I guess we can use the times. It's 90-minute total, or
yeah, 90-minute total.
okay. We could probably use timestamps from the Twitch stream, I guess.
That's true. Hopefully it doesn't go that long anyway. I think Subversive is a player that has sometimes spends a little bit of time figuring out the best move, but once he's figured out his line of play, he's quite fast. So I think definitely advantage Soshi Kurai turn 1.
Yeah, despite the fact that he lost duty, he did break Kitamun Dojo. He's up on breaks in general, and yeah, I mean, that's probably about the best thing you can ask for after you lost duty there. So he is going to go down to 6 honor. He decides to keep the alibi artist because the alibi artist will be active here. There's an enforcer's coming out for Subversive on the other side, as well as another manipulator and a Soshi illusionist. Both cards which can be pretty impactful. The Soshi illusionist especially can be pretty impactful because we know that Soshi Kurai has 2 noble sacrifices in his hand. So if he tries to set up a noble sacrifice play, he can just remove one of those tokens.
I think Illusionist is a very smart buy now. The Alibi Artist, I think, is going to stick around for... I would have potentially considered plonking an additional fate on that artist. I think it's not a bad thing if in this Scorpion match, usually, an Assassinate can quite often cost you a game. Occasionally, it's like a useful closer to turn on your box, but a lot of the time, it costs you the game. So
that is true.
Yeah.
Pi Mittens in chat saying that you're kind of quiet right now, so you might want to adjust your volume.
Thank you, Pi Mittens. I should be a lot louder now.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
All right, yeah, so we're going to see the Alibi Artist and then pass, which to me says that he's probably going to... Yeah, so he's first player. He can go for the fate on the air ring, and then he has enough fate to play Kachiko if he needs to.
Yeah, this is fairly typical of the mirror, where both Scorpion players plummet to honor, plummet to very low honor total. There's a shared pool of 10 honor between the two players at the moment, and I think we see a bit of a game of cat and mouse over who's willing to push the envelope to plummet. Yeah, so they struggle to get each other boxes off. Has he used the Alibi Artist's ability yet?
He did not use the Alibi Artist ability yet because he
wanted the passing fate.
Passed first, yeah. So
yeah, it's fair enough. These are always fun at the moment, like these bids when you're both on this sort of honor total. I would imagine they're both going to probably still bid fairly high at the moment. Threes. That's conservative.
Threes come
both hedging their bets.
So I mean, Subversive does have the he has the manipulator, so he's a little more okay with bidding a little bit lower and then adjusting as needed.
So they've both got double-digit hand size here, both floating a little bit of fate, 3 more for Soshi Kurai. So there's a lot of play, a lot of options on both sides. So I think we'll see some fairly tricky conflicts here. There's nothing straightforward about the state that they're both in. I think they've both got a lot of tricks up their sleeves yet.
Yeah, both showing favorable ground too, so we're gonna see some movement in the next conflict.
Yeah. And if you're looking at Soshi Kurai here, who's currently first player, what do you think you should poke? Do you think you poke at the favorable ground to try and remove that option, like potentially remove that option? Maybe pull Stewart Law in there, and then if the goings look safe, you're then favorable in the enforcers.
Yeah, I think that's a fair play. I think it might be just safer to poke the favorable ground in general, just in case you run
Yeah.
into upholding authority, for example. Then it's automatically +1 strength, and you don't have to worry as much about breaking
Yeah,
on accident.
I think that if you are going to poke, it needs to be with Stewie, because if you poke with Alibi Artist, you would have to use the favorable grounds to eject, because you would be with the favor that you'd have the 3 force, and I'm sure that I'm sure the favorable ground will be used very quickly to make sure that the upholding can break.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One thing of note too, Soshi Kurai, we saw his hand last turn from the Meek Informant. He does have 2 sentries in hand, so that can definitely come into play in this next turn.
Yeah, that is right. And Scorpions typically play, very heavy amount of events and, relatively few attachments. So it's going to make the turn very, very hard for Subversive. Also think it is sometimes when you're holding 2 sentries and your opponent knows that you've got them. I don't mind seeing one used fairly early on, a mediocre to strong event. Like, you got him. There's no fate worse than death anymore, right? Well, very unlikely a fate worse than...
We don't know.
Yeah.
It's possible. I know that I've seen some Scorpions talk about running Fate Worse Than Death still and just running Center in place of Forge Edict. I
Gotcha.
don't know if that is just a pipe dream or if that's actually reality. I haven't played too much following the new restricted list, or at the very least, my local meta at least is still sort of experimenting with and trying to flesh stuff out. So I'm not entirely sure where Scorpion has gone as a whole, but I guess we'll find out sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think we've got another month and a bit of this environment before Children of the Emperor kicks in, so I think there'll be a few kotes with this environment, so this game will be a nice little taster to see what some strong Scorpion players are doing with the clan. Yeah, then maybe we'll see some fawning diplomats and and whatnot to help push the favor. Okay, so there is a little bit of thinking going on, and Soshi Kurai passes his first conflict and giving the initiative to Subversive. I don't know about that. I wouldn't maybe just take the fate off the ring. I think fate's very important at this point. Yeah, but decides not to. Wow, hits upholding again. This seems dangerous.
Yeah, well, he's going with the manipulator only. Although it is selected on military right now. I don't know if Soshi Kurai is running Bonsai or not, or Katana, but that could get you in some trouble real quick.
Yeah, luckily he does have his favorable ground, but
yeah, that
still.
is true. It would seem like a waste to do that when you can just attack in a safer manner, I guess.
Yeah,
and he's gonna go military. Military at upholding authority. And he's going Void. I guess he wants to kill off that Ignoble Enforcers, or maybe even get rid of that Alibi Artist sooner.
I think Void's actually a fantastic idea. Either of those options are great, Alibi Artist or Enforcers. So I think there is, even though you're sacrificing a fate, he's got 4 fate behind him. So maybe that Void Ring is actually very strong at the moment. I think he's thinking that this game's going to go for quite a few more turns.
Alright, so now if you are Soshi Kurai, do you actually defend with anything? Obviously you can't defend with the Alibi Artist, but if you commit the Ignoble Enforcers, then that opens you up to Subversive's second attack with his own Ignoble Enforcers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I've got a simple answer to this problem, so if potentially if I had I mean, you could just defend with the it's a military conflict, so you can't defend with the Alibi Artist. I guess if I had another For Shame, that's an option, because you are actually saving. Realistically, here you're trying to protect your Ignoble Enforcer's like 5 fate investment. So if I've got a simple answer to the problem, like potentially put in your Steward of Law for shame and then use Favorable Ground to get the hell out of there. But if you don't have a simple answer, you got to be careful.
Yeah, so we see no defense here.
Hmm.
I think if you have a military pump, or you might want to try to go ahead and push the issue here.
Yeah.
But obviously, yes, the favorable ground is still represented here, but I'd rather him burn it here.
Yeah, burn it here. Don't let him have like cunning, because cunning magistrate, when being involved, just being present, can cause a lot of problems. So I'd prefer to see cunning magistrate in one conflict rather than two. So just
the other thing too is that also if you go ahead and pump, he plays his own cunning magistrate here. But yeah, so my previous line, if he goes ahead and pulls out, then that also keeps you safe from the Void Ring.
So something really interesting here is because people aren't necessarily... It looks like he's not banking fate for a fate worse than death. So he's got this fate that typically people are saving to use on big cost conflict cards, and the big cost conflict card here is Cunning Magistrate, which is going to stay around for a long time.
Yeah, and so that's one of the changes that I expected Scorpion to make following this restricted list. So obviously, yes, if Fate Worse Than Death was one of your big cards that you played around, really. But there's still other expensive options that you can bank Fate for. I think you just need to bump up the number of those cards. Like, for example, Cunning Magistrate. I think we're going to see a lot more of following this restricted list.
Yeah, for sure. Okay,
so just on pure numbers, he's going to be winning the conflict. So Subversive now needs to consider whether or not he wants to go ahead and use his favorable ground. Does he actually care that much about this Void Ring to where he would get himself, he would waste the favorable ground, waste an attacker, and also get himself upholding authority. For shame comes out to bow the Cunning Magistrate. But there's a censure. There's still one more left in his hand that's live.
Yeah, this is a very tricky turn. Sometimes, you might want to consider with this turn, being as defensive as possible and trying to just grab the favor, like learning to, knowing that you're probably going to be very difficult to win any conflicts. Instead, just try to keep guys ready and win the favor, so therefore the censures are dead. But in this case here, the other option is throw some goods and say, you know what, if you want to cancel them, you got to spend those censures and just play as many free events as you can to burn through those censures so you can then play with a little bit more confidence. Yeah,
and so that's what we're going to see here. We're going to see a second For Shame come out to bow the Cunning Magistrate instead of dishonoring it. But Soshi Kurai will respond with the assassination on the Bayushi Manipulator. Now let's see if if Subversive is running Forge Edict or not, because at this point in time he can go ahead and Edict. But unfortunately, the only courtier he has out is the Bayushi Manipulator, so if he edicts, he dishonors it anyway, and he goes to 0.
Yeah. Forge's probably not the greatest to this spot, and it will probably just be answered with another censure anyway, but you've got to get rid of them. Very low honor totals, all of them. Soshi Kurai has turned on his box as well now. So he can switch.
So he'll be able to snipe that honor from Subversive here.
Yeah. It's funny, there's a lot of fate on these characters, but I wonder if the honor totals that are there are going to support, 3 or 4 more turns. I think we may see this game, end on next turn or the turn after. I would imagine,
especially knowing that one of the duties is already gone.
Yeah,
and that may be one of the reasons that Subversive or Soshi Kurai chose not to use the second censure, is that he knows that duty could still be in play for Subversive. He wants to see if he cancel for it.
Yep. Right.
So the assassination will resolve.
Now I wonder if what sort of conflict characters, if Subversive is running Goblin Sneaks, this would be an unbelievably good time to play one.
Oh, that would be amazing right there.
Yeah.
He is running the Meek Informant, which sort of suggests that maybe he's not.
Yeah.
But
it's hard to include both those characters. Okay, so he's in deep thought. This could be a fake out, pretending he's got options when he doesn't. But he does have 4 fate available, and Scorpion do tend to play a lot of conflict characters, so we'll see what happens here.
Yeah. So if he has a second beacon former, for example, he can't play it here.
No.
He would have to play either more Cunning Magistrates or something like Goblin Sneak. So he's going to see. We're going to see.
Yeah.
Yes, the ring will go back. And now Soshi Kurai is going to have an opportunity to poke.
Yeah, I definitely think I like the idea of a Stewie Law poke somewhere.
Yeah, and I think now that you spent that fate on the Cunning Magistrate, now's the time to go ahead and pick up that fate on the air. You can also apply some more honor pressure to Subversive here.
Well, I think you want to use your box first.
Yeah, you will. You want to box first.
Box first, then use air. He's forgotten to box, so hopefully he'll box during the conflict if Earth is the ring that Soshi Kurai decides to go for.
Alright, so we see the Noble Enforcers being selected here. And he's going for fire. You know, it'd be a military fire attack with the Steward of Law and the Noble Enforcers. We do know that he has 2 Noble Sacrifices in his hand right now, right? So he could be trying to set something up on that other Ignoble Enforcers.
Quite often, when Scorpion, I think you'll see potentially honoring Steward of Law, or honoring one of to be able to actually use the, because it's much harder to honor your characters than it is to dishonor your opposing characters when you're playing Scorpion.
Yeah, for sure. But one of the problems is that since he also needs to find a way to dishonor one of these other characters if he's going to go for that route.
Yeah.
Way the Scorpion obviously is not on in this in most of this matchup. There's not a lot of neutral characters that you can use it on, or non-Scorpion characters. Steward of Law being one of them, but Steward of Law can't be dishonored. So
yeah, you're right. This is going to be tricky. You won't be able, if you're bringing Steward of Law into the conflict, you can't use the firing to dishonor anyone anyway.
Yeah, you would have to use it to probably honor that Steward of Law if you're going to go for this Noble Sacrifice play.
Mm-hmm. And with one fate, it's tricky to play Mark of Shame. All right, so he hits Secret Cache. Subversive claims the Seeker Fate. That's a fantastic pickup for Subversive, and he's going to be able to find whatever answer he needs, most likely. But there is still a censure in Kurai's hand, so it is going to be tricky. But at least he'll have, like a 14th card in his hand. Or 13th card.
So it looks like we're going to see a defense here. Since this is Secret Cache, that's one of your provinces that you definitely want to keep around for as long as possible.
Yeah.
So Subversive is going to throw in his big boy into this conflict.
And his own Stewie of Law, so they're both playing Crane Splash.
Okay, so both Splash are on the table. They might even be running the same deck. Who knows?
They look very similar so far.
Seeing 12 viewers in the chat right now.
Howdy.
So how many people were in this in y'all's Discord?
This
was consisted of all of Australia, or?
Yeah, it is Australia-wide league. Numbers were down a bit this season, just less than 30. But in previous seasons, we've had more than 40. I think it was just a bit of a downturn with Christmas and the holidays and all of that sort of thing. But yeah, it's definitely the players that are up there. Like Subversive has been in many top 8s of this Oz Discord League, probably almost all of them. So we are seeing the same sort of cream rise to the top. But there are some new names too. Yeah.
All right, well, it's good to see that the Australian scene is live and kicking.
Oh, absolutely. We've already talked about, we're waiting till Children of the Empire comes out or Emperor comes out for the next tournament, but we've already got some indications that that's probably going to be our biggest tournament to date. So that's one for those listening in Australia. Please feel free to join in when that one gets announced.
And so we saw him play the steward a lot into the conflict, and he played it for shame. I guess, well, he needed to play the steward a lot in order to have a courtier to play the for shame. So that's going to bow the ignoble enforcers. But we see a second for shame come out from Soshi Kurai to bow the other ignoble enforcers.
An extremely symmetrical game. Look at that board.
Almost identical.
Yeah. This is very interesting as well because Kurai is still holding on to that second censure. And it looks like he should theoretically, as long as he wins his conflict... Oh no, he'll maintain the favor as long as he wins his conflict. If he loses his conflict, he loses the favor. So, you know, I would be tempted to use a censure at some point. But I guess that action... Bowing the ignoble enforcers doesn't make him lose this conflict. So I feel like you hold on to your censure until there's an action that will swing the result of the conflict.
Yeah, and so after these two for shames, Soshi Kurai is still winning this conflict, so we're going to see a pass from Subversive. I would assume that we're also going to see a pass from Soshi Kurai here too. Unless he has, I guess, a bonsai could put him over the edge.
He really needs to use that box. No, I didn't use the box. He's got to use the box. Come on. You're killing me, Kurai.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Alright, so hopefully he remembered that he can't dishonor this ignoble enforcer.
Yeah. He's probably clicking on the ignoble enforcer now. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common interaction that you kind of forget about a lot of times.
Yeah, because Stewie Law is his ability does last until whilst he's participating in the conflict, so that means to the very I think the second last step of the conflict when he goes home.
Right, yeah. Nobody goes home until the very end, so
Yeah.
he's still there and you can't dishonor anybody. So that looks like if I had to guess, if it's taking this long, that's probably what's going on. He might have forgotten that he can't dishonor. But
Yeah. So let's see. All three for shames have been used now by Subversive. It's interesting. Only 5 cards have been played by Kurai and 4 by Subversive. And most of those cards are called for shame. Five for shames have been used. Oh, I guess the duty was discarded out of his hand. So they've played 4 cards apiece and one loss. I think it does talk about the utility of that for shame card. It seems to be able to be used in pretty much any conflict, anytime. Very powerful.
Yeah, it's a fantastic card, especially for decks like Scorpion and Crane, where pretty much every character that you have is going to be a courtier. And so we see the honor on the Steward of Law, and we do finally see the box happen. So that's good for Kurai.
I think we may see an air conflict to cap off this turn, just heading straight back to the manicured.
Yeah, going back to the beginning of this turn, Soshi Kurai did pass his first conflict.
Yeah.
That was his last conflict of the turn, which means that Subversive has the actual last conflict, and it's going to be a political conflict, which can be defended by this alibi artist. Soshi Kurai does have the favor, so if he just attacked with raw stats, he's going to be losing, or he's going to be winning the conflict at least. But
yeah. An interesting option that Kurai has on the table here is to defend with the artist and, or if he is attacked, defend with the artist and use the favorable ground to move in Stewie of Law.
Yeah, that would be good. That prevents the Cunning Magistrate from having any kind of real value. Although we do see, 3 dishonor effects are gone with the 4 shames. He couldn't use it anyway because he wouldn't have a courtier. I always forget that the Cunning Magistrate is not a courtier.
Yeah,
I think that a magistrate would be a courtier, but
I think that's too much power in 1 3-coster. So we see a Watering, which looks like it's a play for the favor, right?
Yeah, if he wins this Water Ring right here, he'd be able to restand the Ignoble Enforcers, which, if Kurai didn't defend, then that would actually tie the favor, but... Okay, this is interesting. So he's going for Upholding Authority again. I guess because he thinks that he probably is not going to break this. So if he wins the Water Ring, he will be able to unbow the Ignoble Enforcers, and Soshi Kurai defends, and Subversive wins the conflict, then he's going to win the favor.
I actually think this is a very important conflict. There's some big swings that can occur off how this may go. If the cunning, I mean, I think the favorable ground is really important here. So it's the backup plan for Subversive. If he does get the force buff, at least he can back out. Because I think taking the upholding authority, breaking that province would be disastrous for him at the moment with 11 cards in hand.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of cards, and you never really want to. Yeah, I guess we haven't seen exactly what's in his hand yet. But if he has edicts, if he has censures, maybe, or if even like something like Kachiko, that could be pretty devastating to lose at this stage of the game.
Manicure Gardens would have just been a much safer play. The ability's already being used. All right. No defense. No defense.
No. Oh, actually, Manicure was used last turn.
Oh, used last turns. Okay, that makes sense.
So he would still gain a fate.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
No defense here is a little scary. I mean, I guess you do have the Steward of Law League. So you sort of set, the honor that you lose here is going to be regained by the Steward of Law League.
You're turning off your censure. Oh no, you're not.
No,
you're not.
You tie the favor.
Yeah, you tie. So you'll retain the favor because Alibi Artist has a glory. Yeah, okay, that's fine play. I like that play.
Yeah, and so that was actually kind of a little bit unimpactful there. Water Ring maybe not quite good enough. I guess he was just trying to bait him into defending and just to see how he was going to react.
Yeah, I think L5 are sometimes like that. You're trying to create as many opportunities as possible to have your opponent make mistakes. Two fade on that air ring now. It's so juicy.
Yeah, and Subversive will be the first player going into next turn.
I think that favored niece will become a very key card. It's a great card in this matchup, and you're searching for just the right answer.
Right, especially with Kurai right now down on card. I think that he wants as much card cycle as possible. He is going to be able to use the Alibi Artist to get an extra card here.
Yeah, and I mean,
and if he really wants, I guess he has the Manipulator coming in too.
Oh, a Liar is a great pickup too. But that favored niece can get rid of the calling in favors and Way of the Scorpions that are not really very useful at all in this matchup.
Yeah, more likely than not, I think Subversive probably is not on very many attachments. Yeah. If anything, it's probably going to be something like Cloud the Mind, which is not terribly useful in this current board.
Yeah, so you're probably safe in cycling one of those if you're desperate for an answer.
Plus, with the honor totals where they are right now, it is a little bit dangerous to be dishonoring your own characters if that you have to do with calling in favor.
Yeah.
So both players buy a Liar. Action goes back to Subversive now to purchase a card. He could pick the Soshi, but I think it might be a little bit more beneficial to go ahead and buy the Soshi Illusionist.
Yeah, the Illusionist can be just so key, especially in the dying stages of these games. 7 on a pool, so there was 3 collective honor lost during last turn. Things do get very desperate here. Do you suspect? Are we going to see? Well, I guess with the favor, it's very hard to pull the 5-1 duty trick because there's cancels that are in Kurai's hands. So I think that's a very dangerous trick to try to pull off at the moment. So I think we might see some double 1 bids here.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna see a pass from Subversive. Okay.
Whew. 9 fate. That probably signals that there's a Kachiko in his hand. Generally speaking, when a Scorpion player wants to retain that much fate.
Yeah, we do know that Kurai still has one.
Yeah.
He has not played that yet. So it could maybe just be potentially a play just to deny that fate from Kurai to make it more awkward for him to to play that Kachiko.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah, we're going to see a pass from Kurai as well. So he doesn't buy the niece. Kind of surprising, but yeah, like we said, I think that does signify that he does want to play that Kachiko at some point. And so when you see bids come out, it's going to be 2 to 3.
Okay. So, yeah, all right then. That was a little unexpected.
So, yeah, that actually turned off
Maybe they're making
Subversive's box. I mean, I guess it the honor change happened anyway, but
yeah. Might be one of those both trying to meta against I Can Swim.
It could be that. Actually, well, think about it now. So since he bid 2, if he had boxed beforehand, or Subversive had boxed beforehand, he would have, it would have been 4 to 3, or sorry, 3 to 4, and then Soshi Kurai could have just boxed back and then put it back down to 3.
It's it's the classic knifey spoony game of Scorpion as a Scorpion mirror. I want to be just a little bit above you so I can use my box, and you can't use yours. But it was didn't quite work out.
Yeah. Double pass here. It's interesting that he didn't use the alibi artist.
Yeah, I think it might be a slight oversight.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can sort of do it whenever, I guess, but might as well go into the conflict phase with as much information as possible. And so it looks like it's going to be a political air poke. Grab that fate, go up to 11 fate. Jeez. And he's going to go to Manicure Garden.
See, cards like
this is the
yeah. I think cards like Soul Beyond Reproach are very, very useful in this mirror because if you're playing your Kachiko and she gets dishonored, it does make her stats very poor. But Soul Beyond Reproach obviously fixes that issue, and it seems like they've both got a Kachiko in hand at the moment.
Yeah, but the downside obviously is that so since these are both Scorpions and they're both on air roll, that also means not only do they have Soul Beyond Reproach, but they probably also have Mark of Shame. So that's Soul Beyond Reproach would be immediately mitigated.
But that is a lot of fate, right? Like playing a Kachiko. I guess if the person who plays Mark of Shame, it's much harder for them to play a Kachiko in return. There's some.
So you have to.
Yeah.
You definitely have to sort of like cat and mouse with that too.
Yeah.
Or, if you play your Mark of Shame first, well then you lost that to my Soul Beyond Reproach value. But if you play your Soul Beyond Reproach first, then you lose that to my Mark of Shame value.
I think if somebody manages to get their Kachiko to stick, that's going to be, if you can get your Kachiko to stick before the other player can, I feel like that's going to be a huge factor in who takes this game out, who can close it. But it's very, very frightening to just spend 8 fate on a 3 fated Kachiko or 2 fate. That's a huge fate investment if you're not absolutely sure that you're going to be able to protect her.
And so we're going to see the mirrored defense here, where this liar is going to defend the other liar. But because Soshi Kurai has the favor, he's actually going to be winning right now, so he can just go ahead and use that Manicured Garden, gain that fate, and then now he doesn't have to do anything until Subversive does something else.
This game is very much like a true mirror, isn't it? It does feel like both decks are very close to identical. I wonder how many cards are different in each deck.
Yeah, I mean they're also flopping the same cards too, which is definitely adds to the mirror aspect of it. So some thoughts here by Subversive, taking his time, thinking.
He's a very thoughtful player.
Yeah, and so both players actually kept the favorable ground.
I think that kind of shows you the power of that card, especially when neither upholding authority has been broken. I think just keeping that favorable ground around. Both got Cunning Magistrates on the table. Having Cunning Magistrates in multiple conflicts is something that gives you a huge edge. One thing I will say is we've seen very, very few Dishonored characters this entire game. Like, very few characters have actually made it to the Dishonored state.
Yeah. Well, I think there's been a Steward of Law pretty much every turn so far, and maybe even in almost every conflict that mattered.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that that is kind of key in this matchup, though. One thing that can really bite you as a Scorpion player is having too many Dishonored characters leaving play.
Unless you're second player.
Yeah, unless you're second player. But it definitely becomes a lot more scary when you know that you don't have duty anymore. It's gone forever. You're never gonna see it.
Yeah, so Kurai definitely has a hard path ahead of him for victory, seeing as it looks like Conquest is a very long way away. To actually dishonor Subversive, he needs to either keep that censure and Forged Edict, keep the favor, and keep those cancel options so the duty can get cancelled, or, you know, just know that it's actually going to be a long time. It's going to be multiple turns to dishonor this guy out. There's a lot of work. Okay,
we're going to see
heavy defense.
Move in.
Yeah, it's heavy defense now. It still doesn't actually put him on top in this conflict, but I guess it means that he's going to commit some cards to this conflict.
Oh, no, he's winning. Oh, it's 5-4.
Oh, 5-4. Apologies. Yep.
Okay, so now he's going to use the Alibi Artist.
I mean,
yeah, because that Alibi Artist can be used at any time, you can sort of use it to burn an action whenever you are waiting for your opponent to make a move. And so because of the passing nature of this game, there's a lot of times where, you know, you might want to wait until later on in the conflict to do something, but you might just not have the opportunity to because you're currently losing and you have to spend some kind of action.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And it's the same, the box can be used in a similar way. Although at this point here, I feel like if Kurai decides that he's not going to commit any more resources to this conflict, and he's just going to lose the conflict, it's better to wait to use that box, because if he loses this conflict, he'll be down to 2 versus Subversive's 5. So therefore, the box can be used without worrying about Subversive being able to use his. And if you can stop your opponent using their box for a turn, that's actually quite an advantage. Okay, there is a lot of deep thinking going on. I think the deeper you get into these matches, and they've both still got over 10 cards in their hand, it does become a little bit 4D chess, trying to figure out the sequence of cards that are going to be played and what you need to save now versus, you know, save it versus use it.
Ooh, we see court games come out now.
It's the first court games of the game.
It is the first, but it's going to stick, and yeah, because of the Cunning Magistrate's ability, it actually makes the Baishu Liar not contributing any skill. But we see the classic counter court games. But going back to what you were saying about the Scorpion matchup, I mean, there's definitely, you have to think about so many different lines just because there's the way your cards interact with each other makes it very difficult to actually get your gameplay off for both players. So, I think I was listening to a Jade Throne podcast where Johnny Shen was talking about all these different lines that he had to think about when he was playing against Samuel Benny's at Worlds, and he talked for a good 30 minutes straight about what he would have to do and so it's just crazy, like, you know, the level of depth that you have to go into when you're playing these mirror matches.
It's super complicated, not only because of the complex nature of your conflict deck and your character's abilities, because Scorpion tend to have lots of great abilities on their characters, but the box just throws so many maths out. So every time you're thinking about a play, it's okay, how does this interact? Because the goal in these mirror matches, right, is if you can use your box and your opponent can't, that's huge on a turn where you're not trying to win the game. when you're trying to just gain an incremental advantage. You kind of are resigned to the fact that the turn you're closing it out, they're likely to, you're both going to probably use your box. But there's so many complex lines, and it looks like Subversive has won this conflict. Kurai has decided this is not the one that he wants to go for. And as we talked about before, this is actually an ideal time now. Presumably, Subversive will steal an honor from Kurai, which he does. Yeah, and this is a perfect time to use the box.
Now he can go ahead and use the box, and he'll return to the same honor that he was at before. And because he's still lower, that actually means that Subversive is not going to be able to use his own box in return.
Yeah, and this is a holding pattern, right? So this actually means that Kurai is not going for the kill this turn, but it's a fantastic holding pattern. It means that Kurai's position is not worse. He's remaining where he was. That's a positive thing in these match up here. So it's like, all right, so I'm going to lose. How do I minimize my losses here? And that meant that he didn't have to commit any additional cards to that conflict. And at the end of the day, really what happened there was they both burned to court games. So that's even Stevens, and Subversive got a fate. So I guess Subversive won the conflict by winning a fate, but nothing else really changed.
Yeah, although he did have to burn that favorable ground in order to actually win that conflict. So maybe
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a resource
that could come into play maybe a little bit later.
Yeah.
And we'll move over to Kurai's conflict now. Kurai has a choice of fate on 2 rings if he chooses to go for fate. He can try to void off that Steward of Law, or he can go for the Earth Ring. Earth Ring always very impactful, as we saw earlier in this game already. Sometimes it just can throw the entire game out of whack when you lose the card that you were banking on.
I think I like the Earth Ring at this point here. I think the Void, getting rid of Stewie is decent, but also like sometimes opponents can make mistakes about which conflicts they commit Stewie to, and I don't think and so sometimes they can actually lose the game if they don't use that if you don't use Stewie correctly. He's a very subtle character, so I think that an Earth is something which you're getting a 2-card swing, you're drawing one, they're discarding one. I think that's very important in these sort of games, and it means he won't feel pressure to bid too high the next turn. Let's see if he agrees with me.
We're going to see a big boy attack here. We're going to see both the large characters, and they are going to be going.
Whoa, that's interesting. So he's trying to find either shameful or upholding.
He's going void.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So he's found upholding. Yeah, I don't know. I think Secret Cache is probably the one to go for there, because you're either going to hit shameful or upholding, and both of those options are terrible.
Yeah, it's rough, right? So all 3 of the provinces that you could have attacked there were god awful.
Oh, the worst. Worst. But at least he knows where upholding is now. Now, this is political, so this actually may be the first real mistake we see, because...
Oh, no, this is military. This is military.
Oh, it's military. Okay. Don't listen to me. So he still can, if he favorable grounds the enforcers out, then the cunning magistrate, it will be okay. So this will be interesting to see if there is a banzai. I imagine that Kurai is going to favorable grounds to get the hell out of there. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna spend it, this now is the time to spend it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unless he wants to, I guess there is the possibility. Yeah, you can switch up and try to go for a conquest style win. That might be a little harder now, though, since your enforcers is going to be leaving this turn, and the enforcers on the other side is still there for another 2 turns at least.
Yeah. Okay, a long hard think about this. I just go home, put my tail between my legs. But you know what? You go home, and then you've got your enforcers to be a big body to defend with on the return fire, the return attack. So I think that's
the Steward of Law definitely, since there's only one conflict left for Subversive, the Steward of Law has lost a lot of teeth because we know that all the 4 shames are gone. So
Yeah, all 3 of the 4 shames are out of there, so I think we don't need to worry.
Yeah, Steward of Law loses a lot of its value when there's no 4 shame.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so we're seeing Subversive take a moment to consider. I mean, I definitely, if I've got a Banzai here or a Fine Katana or whatever, I definitely would aggressively get him to break the upholding. Being able to get rid of a couple of cancels here is huge. I mean, there's 2 knob sacks as well, which may come into play. There's a lot of cards.
I mean, the awkward part though is that if you do play something like a Katana, you stick it on a character that still has 2, so you're giving your opponent prolonged value in exchange for making the break upholding, but which I think is worth. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
just a little awkward.
Oh, absolutely, it is awkward, and I think you've got to weigh up. And I guess without, it's a good point. Like without the fate worse than death, that character will stick around. Like it is much harder to remove that character. I think some folk are playing, and I've definitely had fun with playing Kami Unleashed to help push the Void Ring sometimes. That can help get rid of some of these characters in lieu of having access to your big guns anymore. But we haven't actually seen either player use Forge Edict, have we?
Yeah, so it could very easily still be fate.
We could be talking out our what's it right now, and maybe
Isomalt in the chat saying hello.
Hey, Isomalt, how's it going?
He said, I heard I can get free Tim Tams here.
Tim Tams, and you got to dip them in coffee. Yeah, so for those of you that have joined the cast halfway through, this is a top 8 game for the Australian Discord League, Season 5 of the Australian Discord League, Subversive versus Soshi Kurai. They did actually play earlier. They both went, Soshi Kurai went 4-1, and I think, 3-2, and Subversive went 4-1. But they did play a game earlier in the league. I think it was about round 2 or 3, and Subversive did win that game. The difference between the league games and the cut game, because this is now being top 8, is that with top 8 is decks have been submitted to the tournament master, aka Toridori, who is keeping a track of them. And so you get to use the same. You have to use the same deck, but they are hidden lists throughout the top 8, top 4, and final game. So neither player really knows what the opponent is playing, although it does appear they're playing exactly the same deck, or very close to.
All right, so we're actually about at the 1 hour mark. I just checked the timestamp.
Yeah.
So time definitely coming into consideration here. Soshi Kurai definitely took a hot second to think about that last conflict there, and he chooses to avoid the ignoble enforcer. Could we potentially see Mono no Aware here?
Wow, that would be an amazing play. I'd love to see that. That would be phenomenal. They've both got the fate.
Yeah, I mean, they're both sitting on huge amounts of fate, and neither of them have played. Neither of them play Kachiko. Yeah, of course, there's still political conflict left for Kurai, but man, I don't know.
Oh, actually, there is an update around the timing. The rules were that the round games were 90 minutes during the initial round, but the games are actually untimed for the cut.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, so they do have a little time to think about things, I guess.
Yeah. So action right now is to Subversive.
Mm-hmm. He's in deep thought, just like that computer robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Hopefully, it doesn't take as long as him. It is interesting in these games because the lines are so complex. And I guess one of the challenges in the untimed format is when you're playing it, on one hand, you want to use all options you have to your fullest advantage. So you could, I guess, spend an hour thinking about a particular decision. But on the other hand, you do need to keep the game moving. So I think there is a bit of a line around how long you want to take to think about decisions. You don't want to be unfair to the player, but you also do want to take your time and don't feel stressed about spending a second to figure out exactly what your play is.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I usually advise to people who, not everybody thinks at the same speed, so I don't hold it against anybody for having to take more time to think, or some people play more complicated decks than others, and that also requires more thought. But one thing I advise is to sort of queue up your thoughts as you wait for your opponent to take action. And so while after you make your move, then while your opponent is trying to decide what they do, sort of plot out in your minds, okay, well, they can potentially do one or two things here, and so if they do this, then I can do this, and if they do that, then I can do this other thing instead. So that way, you're sort of keeping yourself at a reasonable pace while you're.
Yeah. So we do see a conflict being declared now. It looks like. So we have a military conflict at the Manicure Gardens, at Soshi Kurai's Manicure Gardens. Subversive is committing the ignoble enforcers, the big boy as you've called it. Yeah, so I feel like in the untimed format, you need to kind of push both conditions. They're both at 3 honors, so it's even though they're both at 3 honors, sometimes with Scorpion you can hover around that sort of 3 to 4 honor for a very long time. So I think if possible, you do want to be trying to break some provinces at some point, I guess. It's not bad to break provinces.
Yeah, and so he's going to Manicure. He already attacked Manicure once this turn, so this time it will actually be off. But this is a military conflict. Only sending the enforcers, so Kurai now can just go ahead and defend with his own enforcers. But the question is whether or not he has enough sauce to defend against it. Right now, since Subversive is the attacker, he's still winning on the tie.
I feel like a lot of the game that we're watching here, there's the played game, as in we're seeing people play certain cards, but there's also the unplayed game. So I think a lot of what we're seeing here is because Subversive is aware that there's noble sacrifices, 2 of them in Kurai's hand, and Essentia. And, obviously Kurai is seeing that Subversive is playing Crane Splash. There's a lot of thought around how am I playing around Noble Sacrifice? How am I going to bait out that Sentia? So there's all of those sorts of things, which are resulting in some conflicts where very few resources are being used because both players are trying to conserve their resources until they've figured out a line that's actually going to help them close the game. So I think that's why sometimes these conflicts seem simple in terms of if you just looked action by action, but there is a hell of a lot of thought behind them.
Yeah, and sort of on a related note, Isomalt in chat asking how many cancels have been played by each side. There's only been 1 Sentry played, but there have been no other cancels played so far in this game. So we don't even know if these players are on Forge Edict. They could potentially not be on Forge Edict.
We have cited no restricted cards. They could be running Void Fist for all we know. They're probably not running Void Fists.
Not Void Fist.
Oh, no, that's true.
It could be a young rumor monger.
Young rumor monger could be. Yeah, so if we have a look here, is Soshi Kurai has played 2 For Shames, Stewie of Law, Court Games, Assassinate, Censure, and the duty he didn't play. That duty was very early on. There was a Ring of Earth, the very first Ring of the Earth of the game, and it got rid of the duty, which is pretty unfortunate. And Subversive has played all 3 For Shames, a single Meek Informant, and a single Court Games. So it hasn't actually been many cards played at all. And we are in turn 3. Are we in? Turn 3. So we're nearing the end of turn 3, but we're just over an hour into the game as well. So it's been a complicated game.
And we're going to see a no defense here. A no defense and pass. So that is a little bit risky. So Kurai right now, obviously, is going to go down to 2 from the unopposed. The Fire Ring now can be used to dishonor one of these characters that's about to leave. And so that'll put him down to 1 honor, and we know that he doesn't have duty, so it's going to put him in a very, very precarious situation.
Yeah. Isomol asks about tiebreakers. This game's actually untimed, so there won't be tiebreakers. There'll just be an eventual... there'll be an end to the game, and that end to the game may be the heat death of the universe, but it'll probably end at some point. I mean, it's only been an hour. I shouldn't carry on like that.
And we see that Kurai or Subversive chose to dishonor the Ignoble Enforcers, which is an interesting choice. I guess partially it makes the Ignoble Enforcers weaker, but you think that you would probably want to go ahead and dishonor the Courtier instead, just in case he's on 4G. Obviously, he has a second Courtier available with the Baishu Liar, but it does make things a little bit trickier. If he has 2 4G, for example. Oh, yeah, and it's a Soul Beyond approach to.
Yeah, I think that's really, really tough. Yeah, I would have potentially honored up my own guy there. The challenge here as well, I guess. Does Kurai? Yes, Kurai still has 1 conflict left, right?
Yes, Kurai has a political conflict left.
So if Kurai can figure out a way to dishonor the Ignoble Enforcers in this conflict, which I don't know how, but if there was a way, I guess a mark of shame, he could kill the Ignoble Enforcers with the Noble Sacrifice, right?
Yeah, that is possible.
Yep.
There are 2.
Okay. I think the Solbjorn Reproach is an extremely powerful card in this mirror matchup. Swing of 2 honor.
I mean, even just in general, right? Like,
yeah.
I think that this card, I think this card sort of got, I don't want to say overlooked, but maybe attention than it deserved when it got announced, because everyone was like, oh my god, you just honor something once, and you have to pay a fee for it, so it's like a worse way of the Crane kind of thing. But then as more people started playing it, even within Crane, we're like, oh man, okay, this card is actually kind of really, really good, especially against Scorpion. And now that Scorpion has it, we can really see the value of this card. So
I feel like Subversive's Shameful is under attack now, under siege. I feel like Kurai only does this because he knows that the last province is either a pilgrimage or a Shameful, and almost, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a Shameful. I think he is only doing this if he's going, you know what, time for a break. And he doesn't want to give Subversive a card, and he's very confident that he'll be able to break this Shameful. I don't feel like you're doing this just to claim a ring. I think Secret Cache is probably a safer province. Eight skill is a lot of skill.
It is a lot of skill. So right now, Subversive can actually, he can defend with that Steward of Law, honor the Steward of Law, and take that honor off of the Ignoble Enforcer.
Yeah. So Steward of Law, he stops people from they cannot become dishonored. So what that means is they can still move from honored to ordinary.
Yeah, so the tricky part here is, okay, so Kurai's going to go ahead and pass, but he did lose that honor. The honor token that was going to be leaving play this turn would have put him back up to 3 honor. So he's still going to be at 2 honor at the end of this turn, but he will get this Earth Ring. Unless Subversive wants to go in and commit some more cards to it. It'll also put him up on breaks.
Yeah, there's no for shames left. It is a political conflict, so with 11 Fate, this might be the time to play Kachiko. This would be probably a really good time.
If there was a time to play Kachiko, I think it should be... Okay, there she is.
Yeah.
In which case, also, I think that maybe that was a little mistimed. So I think you should have just gone ahead and play Kachiko here, and then you could have used the Shameful to honor her.
Yeah, that's true.
So you sort of miss out on that value. I of course, like, maybe the mark of shame can come down, and then maybe you feel bad. I don't know. But I think that, if you had a chance to go ahead and honor Kachiko for free with the Shamefulness split, then you go ahead and take it.
Well, the 4D chess here might be that he's baiting Kurai to play his Mark of Shame on Kachiko, so therefore Subversive can play his Soul Beyond Reproach.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
So that was 8 Fate dumped out on Kachiko now.
Yeah. There is a big problem here, is that Kurai has to do something now about this Kachiko, otherwise the Enforcers is going to find himself at home with his tail between his legs, bowed.
Yeah. Isoma pointing out in the chat that the steward-in-law is in the conflict to protect Kachiko in the event.
Oh yes, good point. So
she couldn't be mark of shame during this conflict. It could be after the fact, sure. But at least for the purposes of this conflict, she's probably going to be staying at.
So we do.
Status.
Yeah. So there is some pretty dangerous stuff that can happen. Wow. Yeah. There you go. Second for shame. Kachiko bowed. Now, interestingly, if there was a forged edict in Subversive's hand, he could have used it because Stewie of Law is honoured, so you can remove the honoured token, and that's perfectly in line with the rules that the steward has put in play.
But despite the fact that Kachiko is bowed, she is still honoured, so she gets to go ahead and send home that ignoble enforcement, which means that Subversive is no longer in risk of this province breaking. Shameful is still one strength away from being broken, since the alibi artist is in here with the favor, putting him at 3. Steward of Law only at 1.
Assassinate is not an option.
Yes, actually not an option here. You have to have the 3 honor in order to play Assassinate.
Yeah. So the good thing is, even if Kurai has forgotten about Assassinate, is about the fact that he's got 2 honor, his Jikiku won't let him play it. But I don't think he has. They're both pretty strong. They're both very well known Scorpion players across Australia. So I don't think either of them are making mistakes here. Okay. So the question is, if you've got your own Kachiko here, you can boot Stewie of Law from this conflict, take Shameful Display, maybe play some tricks.
Yeah, if you had any way to dishonor Kachiko here and maybe honor one of your own characters, then that'd be there's the Fate dropping down, and there's the Kachiko coming down from.
So it's that time of the game. Both Kachikos have hit the table. This has been one of the most symmetrical games of L5R I think I've ever seen.
What if everything was equal?
Yeah, I know.
L5R. Perfectly balanced as all things should. Yeah, and so now that the Kachiko effect has been used on Ignoble Enforcer, there's no way for Subversive to buff his own Kachiko and boot the other Kachiko out.
Yeah.
So now the Steward Law is probably going to go away, which will turn on dishonor effects if there are any left. I think every 4 shame is gone.
Well, with the pass, I think you're only using Kachiko's ability if you actually have some other effects to use. Otherwise, don't bother. Just pass and win the conflict. Looks like there isn't anything else he wants to use. What ring was this again? This is Earth Ring. Soul Beyond Reproach.
So
wow.
Reproach. Okay,
that's a good pickup.
That's kind of huge.
That is a really big pickup. With Kachiko's on the table, those Soul Beyond Reproaches are huge. I wonder if there was a thought to playing Soul Beyond Reproach on. I guess he's got a giant hand, and I think you just play the lottery, and hopefully he doesn't pick up one of your Soul Beyond Reproaches, because ideally the time to play Soul Beyond Reproach is when Kachiko gets dishonored next.
Yes.
Okay. I think Illusionist is huge. You're never ditching Illusionist. You're never throwing Illusionist away here.
And so Subversive's still going to have the Fate and the card advantage going into the next turn. Although Kurai is up on breaks, which, probably not super relevant, but at the same time, I think both players are going to hover around the same honor total for a while.
So the end of turn 1, we had a combined 10 honor. The end of turn 2, there was a combined 7. The end of turn 3, a combined 5 honor. So the communal honor pool is definitely trending downwards, as is quite typical. I feel like these enforcers are only going to be playable with Fate on them. So I don't think we'll see that.
No,
we'll see a Zokogen. I love that little guy.
Yeah, so the Zokujin could actually be kind of relevant here.
The Zokujin is fantastic when you're the first player. Although the Earth Ring doesn't have any fate on it. At least if he uses, if Kurai decides to declare Earth first, is that Zokujin? There's not much that can be done about him. Obviously, fantastic first player trying to sleaze provinces, and in a situation like this where it is people are on very low honor totals, having that covert keyword is extraordinarily powerful.
What I find, I think if you're Kurai, yeah, you go ahead and buy that favorite niece.
Yeah.
And I think you're okay with just not buying anything else, depending on what your hand is, I think. But if anything, maybe you buy that manipulator.
Yeah, I feel like you need
maybe you buy the illusionist.
The challenge is, I think you needed to choose either the illusionist or the niece. You choose the niece if you've got, Wave the Scorpions and other shit in your hand that you don't want. Otherwise, you choose the manipulator, and we do have. Otherwise you just pass. Like a pass is fine. Subversive taking a moment to reflect. There's a lot of fate. I don't know what. Obviously, there's 11 cards in your hand, and no doubt there's some fate to be spent there. I feel like the illusionist is super important. I would likely buy, but then again, 4/4 is huge stats, and those stats are actually fairly relevant at the moment.
Right, but if you commit to 4/4, you're only buying one of these probably, and then you're not buying anything else. He's gonna buy the illusion. I think that's the safest thing to do in this situation.
Agreed.
Just because you know that there are 2 noble sacrifices in his hand, and you want nothing to do with that happening to your Kachiko.
You don't want no part of that. Yeah, I think illusionist was a must buy. I would have potentially considered putting. The thing is, right, when you're at this stage of the game, is it's really safe to put a couple of extra fate on these characters. I would have liked to have seen 2 fate on both of those illusionists, because Assassinate's no longer in the game. Like, I think most of the time people don't put extra fate on the 2 costers because they're really worried about assassination, but it's just not going to happen now because it's just.
Well, I think Kurai probably would have wanted to, but he is only on 1 fate remaining now.
Yeah,
so he would be kind of fate starved going into the next turn. I think he's already lost Manicure Garden, so that's a good source of fate right there. So he had to rely on Kurai flopping the secret cache in order to get an extra fate.
I think we will.
Especially since you need to use fate to use the illusionist ability, you want to at least have 1 left.
I think we will see Kurai declare water as his first conflict to grab that fate.
Yeah, water's pretty impactful here too, since there is a character on Subversive side with no fate. There's 2 of them actually. There's the Steward Law and the Noble Enforcers. So,
all right, I think we might see a couple of niece uses now. That is clutch. Yep. So calling in favors and Wave the Scorpion are the 2 cards. I think, as you said, Cloud's probably the only attachment in either deck, or a Mark of Shame.
Yeah. Well, the Cloud actually super relevant right now, just because Kachiko is out. And both players do have a Shugenja on the board, so we could see Cloud come out at some point.
I feel like do we think we'll see some 2s and 3s bids, or are we probably just going to default to 1s now? It's that stage of the game where that loosey-goosey type draws are probably too much to handle.
Yeah, I think it sort of depends if it's gonna be 1s, but if Subversive had duty, I would consider maybe go ahead and trying to spend it here, since you know that you're probably behind on the cancel battle right now, since the Censure is live for Kurai. You might as well just go ahead and try to extract some value while you can.
Okay, so the conflict phase has begun. At least we've got a couple of different characters now. There's a Stewie and a niece that are different. But these symmetrical games are amazingly complicated.
So during the draw phase, we didn't see a Cloud come out, so that sort of tells me that Subversive probably doesn't have, maybe not even in his deck, or maybe he just hasn't found any yet.
I think it is relevant that Kurai is a province up on the old breaking, just because it does put a little bit of extra pressure. You never want to lose your third province, and there's enough tricks to try and keep yourself around. And with these guys here, keep yourself around because neither of them are playing keeper. There's no backhanded compliments or other direct ways to lose honor apart from the airing, so they can still keep around for another turn or two. There is that natural attrition. It's very hard to stay alive for more than a couple turns with 2 honor, but they can do it. So I think Kurai is probably weighing up at the moment. Okay, so can I...
Interesting that we saw the mutual box bow here, but yeah, go ahead.
I think that sometimes that mutual box bow happens when both players realize the sequence of play is way too complicated and they just want to get it over and done with. Yeah, I was just saying that at the moment, one of the considerations Kurai will be no doubt working through is, can he commit now to attacking that secret cache, breaking that, and then being on the box on the second conflict? Because once you're on the box, that puts tremendous pressure on Subversive. And, Kurai still got that censure in his hand, and he's still got the favor, which he's kept for the entire game. I think that's the maximum pressure route. Or is he considering going for a more defensive maneuver this turn? Because he's only on 2 honor.
Yeah, it's definitely very scary being on 2 honor right now. So
now that's 7 fate advantage. What can Subversive do with that 7 fate?
Well, ordinarily, if you're sitting on this much fate, then you would expect Hachiko, but she's already out there, so I don't know what else he could possibly be sitting on right now that he just opted not to spend any fate. Or there's a Cloud of Mind that comes out on Hachiko. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's a Cloud of Mind on the other Hachiko. All right, cool, awesome.
Oh, I love this game. This is an amazing game. What I do like, though, is that every turn, both players have been advancing towards their victory condition. They've either taken a province or they're getting their opponent on smaller and smaller honor totals.
It's like playing L5R in front of a mirror, says Kurai. This is, in fact, the mirror match.
Yeah, this is as mirror as it gets. It'd be fantastic to compare these decks later on. I think the Soshi Shadow Shaper could be the point of difference, right?
Yeah, that and the Zokujin.
Yeah.
Two cards that are very, they're very toolboxy. I think we see some players use them, some players don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
And so Kurai is on first player here. So like you said, you could go ahead and attack the water ring and get that fate on there, which could be very important later. It may also be important to go ahead and go for the air ring and maybe deny that option from your opponent.
Yep.
Or possibly win it yourself too, and give yourself necessarily. Well, I guess you can go for a little more breathing room here. The difference between 2 and 3 is actually kind of big.
So calling in favors has a real cost now to both these players, because obviously turning Kachiko's ability on will help you get close to guaranteeing a conflict win, which is obviously super important. But if you play that calling in favors, it does mean that it is an honor loss by dishonoring your character. Being when you're on 2 honor or 3 honor is massive.
Yeah, but right now Kurai actually cannot play Calling of Favors even if he has a second one. Subversive, on the other hand, has this huge pile of fate that he can go ahead and play a Calling of Favors and use the Illusionist to remove the Dishonor token, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to put the Cloud of the Mind on the Ignoble Enforcers. We could see a cancel here.
What we could see here as well, right? This would be the absolute perfect time to Mark of Shame and Knobsack Kachiko. Oh, we see that censure used. That was very critical.
So we don't know, since we don't know the deck list, though, we don't know if he's on 2 or 3.
Wow.
So there could potentially be a third censure out there in the wild.
What's super interesting is with 19, also 21 of 40 conflict cards burned through, no forged. There wasn't a return forged there, right? So
Yeah, we still have no
yeah,
idea what restricted card these people are.
both players. So maybe they are playing Fate Worse Than Death, which does make that 6 Fate even more terrifying. There's 2 censures that have been utilized so far, which were in Kurai's opening hand. So there is a potential 3rd censure, which we don't know if exists. So,
yeah. Look, I mean, for all we know, they could be both playing Charge right now, and just completely bamboozle everybody.
Charge would be great. Charge on those 4/4 bodies. They're big bodies, right? Upholding.
He's going for upholding. Okay.
Yeah, and quickly flicks it to military. That's weird. Upholding's interesting. I would have suspected that you go for cache so you can actually try and break it. Just very scared of that card, I guess. Doesn't want to give a card to Subversive.
Yeah, well, I think in this situation too, you go ahead and poke the water, and
yeah,
you make it a little bit easier for you to go ahead and break the secret cache whenever you go for the attack on it.
So they got a bit of time to set up.
Part of the problem is so if you go for the secret cache and you don't break it, which right now is kind of hard to do, given that there's an exact mirror of your your board on the other side. If you go for it and you don't break it, then that's actually really bad for you because you just gave your opponent a free card. And yeah, so we are going to see a defense here with the Ignoble Enforcer, which is going to be enough to actually put him in the lead in the conflict. We're going to see an instant pass here. We can see if Kurai wants to invest anything to try to go ahead and bow out that Steward Law 2. But it looks like no. The answer is that she's wanting to get the Fate and at least get one of the no Fate characters bowed.
Okay, so successful defense. I think Fate management is definitely an art for Scorpion. It's really, really hard for Kurai to be on 1 Fate at the moment. I mean, 0 Fate was obviously death, but there's so many cards in your hand that require a couple of Fate. 1 Fate here, 1 Fate there. So, especially when you're doing the Knobsack, Soul Beyond Reproach, Mark of Shame type builds.
Yeah, and so both of the Noble Sacrifices in his hand right now are just completely non-threatening. It's very difficult for him to actually get the Fate to trigger it.
Yeah, he's got a hand. Essentially, he's got a effective hand size of 6 at the moment. But I wonder how many of those same cards are actually in Subversive's hand. We haven't seen Subversive's hand yet. We just got a peek very early on, thanks to a Meek Informant, what was in Kurai's hand. But Subversive, we just have no idea.
And so it looks like we're going to see a military poke right now with that Steward of Law going to Upholding Authority. This is also a little bit risky.
Yeah. We've seen more attacks on Upholding. We've seen Upholding Authority farm so much this game, both sides.
Yeah. But simultaneously, though, it would be very risky of Kurai not to defend this with somebody at least.
Yeah, for sure.
The only problem is that if he actually wants us to break, say he wants to commit a bonsai or something like that, if he defended with somebody, he wouldn't be able to boost the Steward of Law up to breaking without actually spending an honor. And so yeah, we're gonna see a defense with the Cunning Magistrate here. A quick pass. Going for the Friar Ring here is good. It prevents Kurai from potentially dishonoring one of your characters, although you do have protection from the Soshi Illusionist. you're not in dire straits should that happen.
Yeah.
I am up pointing out the Stewie is attacking, so firing is worthless for DH. Yeah. If he was gonna get this off, he would just honor the Kachiko and just make her into a big stat stick. Also, he could potentially remove the dishonor token from the Ignoble Enforcer, so he doesn't lose that honor.
Yeah.
And Cloud the Mind comes out on the Soshi Illusions now.
I think you're gonna, if you win this conflict, I think honoring Kachiko is probably best bet, just to have the giant stats out.
Sure. But the question now becomes, how is he going to win the conflict?
Yeah.
So
that is good. No favorable grounds. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could see a Bonsai here from Subversive, just a single lone Bonsai.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful because you want to win it, but not by too much.
Right. So if you do Bonsai yourself here, then you turn on so the Kurai being able to use Bonsai on the Steward Law for free without having to spend the honor, and so that actually keeps you in the ring.
Yeah. I think you just have to lose this conflict. I feel like this might be a great chance to pass. I think Bonsai is extraordinarily dangerous here. Because as soon as the opponent knows what's in your hand...
Yeah, well, not only does he know what's in your hand, but you're also going to lose something that's in your hand. Maybe he's been sitting on the 3/4 GDX this whole time, and he's just been waiting it out. Soul Beyond Reproach to honor the Ignoble Enforcer.
That is interesting.
So the whole point of this was just, I guess, just to go ahead and take that dishonor token off the table. And so now, if you are Kurai, I don't think you burn a cancel on this. If you have another one, I think you just go ahead and let that happen.
That was definitely, that smelt of bait, right?
Yeah, I think that was definitely a bit. Oh, Mark of Shame comes out on Kachiko too. But why? But the Steward of Laws in the conflict.
Steward of Laws in the conflict? What did you do? That was a horrible misplay.
Oh my
no.
goodness.
Oh no. Oh no. Oh. Oh no.
And now Subversive realizing his mistake. He could have just waited until the conflict was over.
Oh.
That's a wasted 2 fate. And now okay, now
horror.
Kachiko can
the horror. Subversive, what are we going to do with you? This is one of those stamina things, right? I feel like that's an endurance mistake. Is, you know, we are an hour 35 into the game, and or at least an hour and a half into the game, and I think that was just a mistake because you've just been playing too long. Wow. That is a massive, costly mistake. I mean, it still has an effect. I guess Kachiko's 5 political strength, not 6 anymore.
Yeah, but you know, but I guess it kind of matters because Kachiko, you're just gonna lose this next conflict on raw stats if you go ahead and put Kachiko in. But you know, her ability is now irrelevant for both players, so it kind of doesn't make that big of a difference.
It's double turned off. Wow.
Isomalt saying Scorpion haven't had Stewie long enough to know the real ways to be scummed out by Steward Law. Yeah, I guess that's true. And so
I feel like
that's just a real bonehead mistake.
Yeah, Crane players definitely. Strangely enough, Crane players know how to play that Scorpion card a lot better than Scorpion players. I've made that mistake as well. So, Subversive, if you're watching this on the replay, don't feel too bad. Like we've all made that mistake. I've tried to. I think when we first got Seeker of Air as our role, I certainly tried to play Forged Edict where Steward of Law was in play and couldn't work out why I couldn't play it.
And so we're gonna see the all in now at the Secret Cache.
Capitalize on the mistake. Yeah. It's capitalize on the mistake, right?
Yeah, and I think that if you're Subversive, then you have to go ahead and defend here, with Probably both. You don't want to risk again Kurai being on your stronghold on the next turn. The one benefit is that if you leave the illusionist behind, then you can go ahead and sneak an attack in with your illusionist and go ahead and get that unopposed. But there's no real good provinces for you to attack. I guess you can hit Shameful, pray for Shameful. You'll be able to break it scot-free.
Yep. Okay, so there is a bit of thought about what to do here. Subversive does have a political conflict after this. It is an airing. Airing is a very important ring at this stage of the game.
Yeah, so, and that's the other problem too. So yeah, say you do leave the illusionist at home, then you allow your opponent to get an air ring off, and then your unopposed attack kind of doesn't matter anymore.
So we've seen 2 Soul Beyond Reproaches. There are a lot of Scorpion players who are running triple Soul Beyond Reproach. That is 6 influence worth. Triple Soul Beyond Reproach and 2 Knobsack seems to be the most popular variant.
Sure, so but we've already also seen the Steward of Law too, so we know that there's less of one of the 2 cards of either Soul Beyond Reproach or Noble Sacrifice.
We might be seeing the 2-2-2 build. 2 Stewies, 2 Knobsacks, 2 Soul Beyond Reproaches. So, Court Games, though, we keep forgetting about that card. The Court Games still exists, and that could honor up Kachiko. So we may see a defense here. I think this is your 3rd province. You do want to defend fairly hard. So I think in a timeless game as well, unless you can figure out a way how you're going to win on your return conflict, like close the game out this turn, which I can't see a way of doing that. I feel like an all-in defense is probably not a bad move here.
Yeah, it's definitely the safest thing to do. And so I think that in this particular situation, you want to go ahead and be as safe as possible, just because you know that you have your opponent on the honor ropes. Kind of, they'll be able to steal an honor from you next turn because you're going to be up to 5 honor, and they can just go ahead and use the stronghold there, and you won't be able to stronghold back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just go ahead. You also know that your opponent doesn't have duty anymore, and so it's fine for you to be a little more conservative and just wait for your opportunity to go for that kill. But going back to what you were saying about the stamina thing, yeah, that's definitely a factor in this game. This game requires, especially in the Scorpion Mirror match, right? We were just talking about how there's 1,000,001 different lines that you could take at any given time. This game is mentally taxing, and the fact that it is so long means that it's going to be a real drain on you. But the important thing for Subversive, especially in this situation, after he's made such a critical mistake, is just to brush it off and then just keep on playing, and get your head back in the game and go from there. But right now, it looks like he is opting to only defend him with the Soshi Illusionist, which might be kind of a mistake here. He's gonna put another mark of shame on Kachiko?
But now he's got no fate. Alright. The province isn't breaking now, though, so it will require Kurai to actually play some cards here.
Sure. One thing of note, though, so take a look at Subversive's hand size. He had a pretty sizable hand lead for the entire game up until this point. Now he's down to 7 cards.
And I think that had Kachiko left the table, if the mask had the mark of shame had hit, I think that would be an acceptable loss of cards. But now, yeah, you're right. That's
and now we're gonna see the nightmare scenario. Where...
poor Subversive.
Okay, all right. There's a 4G though. So 4G will come out.
Restricted card revealed.
And another 4G will come out.
They're all coming out of hiding. And do we see a second 4G from Subversive?
I think if you have it. Oh no, he doesn't have it. And so
Ooh. Kurai is asserting his dominance. His Kichiko is bigger than Subversive's.
Yeah, well, it's It's bigger than a lot of things right now, even despite the fact that it's been shamed twice. So
So it's a 5. Sorry, an 8-7. 8,
8-7.
9. Yeah, 8-7.
Wait, 8. Where are you getting 8 from?
Oh, sorry, 6-7. 6-7.
6-7. 6-7. Okay.
6-7. Yeah.
All right. You choose to gain 2 honor here. Which I guess it's fine.
It means that he's declaring his intent to win via conquest.
Yeah.
I think that's what it means.
You're just gonna go ahead and smash Kachiko into the
I think we'll see
stronghold next turn.
Yeah.
Might see like a military poke first, and then.
Now there is a big challenge that Subversive has here. So Subversive could pass his conflict to get the favor, and that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, and that's what he does. Okay.
Yeah,
so that's
turning on his censures.
Smart.
Yeah, he sacrificed. I mean, basically, he turned on his censures, but he left a character on the table. So I think,
At this point in the game, you're so far behind the race that you need to win by dishonor. So I guess there's no point in you attacking and risking getting your Kachiko
nerfed into oblivion. Yep. All right. So Soshi Shadow Shaper leaves as it was on a broken province. And we see a full flush, 2 forced and 1 unforced from Subversive. Okay, they're both going in with just the standard 7 fate. They both just bankrupt themselves last turn. So
this
now
is gonna be this is like in big movies where you get to like the final fight scene, and then both like the hero and the villain have like used up all like their guns and like their weapons, like their swords are broken, whatever the case is, whatever, and like now they just have to throw the weapons down and then fight with their fists.
It's the fist fight phase. And the dojo has come down. This is in the worst position too. They both have had their dojos fall into the edge of their provinces. I think you got to bring out all your characters.
And also, there's a storehouse there right now, so you don't even get the value of being able to buy that character.
No.
So
well, we'll get to flip it, I guess.
There's not a lot of characters coming out from Subversive, so just in terms of raw stats, he's losing right now. The Soshi kind of useful. He'll be able to negate 2 stats from one of Kurai's characters, but it's looking kind of grim right now, I must say.
Yeah.
Thankfully for Subversive, he is first player, but I also think that's kind of irrelevant in the situation. I don't think you're really attacking anything. Maybe a water attack.
Yeah.
But
Kurai can actually bid. He could definitely bid 2, but he can maybe bid 3. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Kurai bid 3.
Yeah, Subversive doesn't play the Soshi.
He values that fate, so presumably he has something in his hand. The cost fate.
Maybe another cunning magistrate.
Yeah, or maybe he's got Mark of Shame. Oh no, he's already used.
He wants to play a 3rd Mark of Shame on Kachiko.
How shameful can this Kachiko be? What does she get up to in her downtime? Jeez.
I don't know. She's basically gonna be the Cersei Lannister, right? Just paraded through the streets. The nun ringing the bell at her.
Yeah. All right, Storehouse got used because why not? So 5 fate's good for Kurai. Kurai's got quite a bit of a war chest here. He's got a huge board. He's got a hidden card under Hidden Moon Dojo, so there's potentially another character to play. There is a favorable ground on the side of Subversive, which can be useful.
Yeah, it'd be sick if like he flipped like Aramora or something on his poke on rap.
Okay, so they both flipped. Oh, so they both bid 3 after a manipulator had their way.
Yeah, so even on cards, but Kurai right now with a oppressive looking board.
Yeah. So the vast majority, I think, though, this is where the favored niece comes into play here, right? Like, that's the second wave Scorpion that Kurai has been able to cycle. Is this very likely Subversive has at least one in his hand, probably, and he may have all three if he's really unlucky. So there could be a lot of dead cards in Subversive. Often in the Scorpion mirror, there is a lot of dead cards in both players' hands unless somebody flops a niece. So this is looking really good for Kurai at the moment.
Kurai had all three Way of the Scorpions drawn at this point in time, so he gets to cycle all and hopefully get some fresh cards that'll help him in this matchup or in this this next conflict. So he has used all 3 Force Shames. There are still court games live, and he's used both Soul Beyond Reproaches. We know that he has to be on the 2/2/2 splash. Because we've already seen the 2 Soul Beyond Approaches and we've seen the 2 Noble Sacrifices, so it's very possible that he does have another Steward of Law left, and I think if he does, that more or less will seal the game for him. Meanwhile, on Subversive side, he has not used a lot of stuff yet, except for the 4 Shames, so 1 Cunning is gone too for both characters, both players. I know, just Subversive. Then there's the Cunning for Kurai right now.
Yes, I think this has to be a full defense turn. You need to keep that favorable ground to help control which characters you have defending. Because I think we'll see Kurai theoretically, Kurai should do a military poke so the rally can, to resolve the rally, because it's most likely rally. Very unlikely that it's anything else. And then declare the big political as your second conflict to try and win the game.
Yeah, and you can even poke with that favored niece who's not going to contribute any skill to any of the conflicts. So
yeah, absolutely. Now
go ahead and nab the Fate off one of the ring.
So I've seen 2 Soul Beyond Reproaches and 1 Stewie. We know that there's 2 Knob Sacks in Kurai's hand, so that means that the other card, the other splash card that Kurai's using is almost definitely a second Stewie. So it looks like they're probably playing the exact same splash as well, like either the ratios of cards.
One thing we have not seen from Kurai yet is any Market Shame. So we could see a Market Shame come out and then devastating.
Yeah, and that maybe
actually, well, he has no honor characters right now either. So maybe he doesn't want to sacrifice Kachiko.
Right, we are seeing a conflict, an Earth conflict. I think that Kachiko was a very bad target to Covert because she was never ever coming along.
No, she was. There was 0 chance of her going in there. So, I think there was sort of 0 chance of anybody going in at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kurai is actually really excited at the prospect of being attacked right now. Because
shameful.
Yeah, it was either going to be shameful or secret, and you can. Now's the time to use the dojo, right? Just use the dojo. Oh my god!
Actually, shameful is horrible here, because so right now Kurai can go ahead and throw a character in to this conflict, right? And then if he has the Mark of Shame, he can go ahead and just murder Kachiko.
This is terrible. Yeah, that is absolutely horrible.
And if that Kachiko is gone, then that's pretty. That has to be game.
Yeah. I feel like Subversive is cursing himself from his mistake last turn. Very unfortunate when that happens. All right, let's have a look.
It is
Aramoro! Wow.
So this is kind of like a lose-lose situation for. He didn't defend.
No, he didn't defend.
Okay, well.
I feel like you just plonk Aramoro at home, right?
Yeah, you just go ahead and buy Aramoro now. It's fine.
And your military poke becomes a military you better defend, otherwise you're going to lose on this first conflict. I feel like you can almost now, with Aramoro on the table there, is Rally will flip it to political, but I think you can bring the right set of characters to put maximum pressure. I think your conflict assignment now is you need to think about it a little bit, but you can threaten both times to force Subversive to use resources on the defense.
Man, I forgot that Aramora was only 4 cost.
Yeah, man. Aramora is
Yeah.
fantastic for stats. It's 5 skill for 4 costs. There's not many characters in the game that have that skill.
Yeah, there sure are not.
I mean, if you can honor Aramoro, so this is the challenge, right? Send him in for military. If it gets flipped to political, maybe there's a court games, right? And that court games puts him, if he brings a friend, puts him in danger of breaking on political. So we will see. What's he get? A Cunning Magistrate, which is actually a dead card for Kurai because he can't afford to play it. So right. Kurai's probably pretty happy to see that card disappear over the other cards in his hand. I feel like Subversive needs to prioritize using that Illusionist to remove an honored token from somebody who, from one of the people that doesn't have Fate on them. I think you've got to find a different way to deal with Kachiko. Because you are trying to protect yourself from your Kachiko getting axed. Well, I guess you just remove the Dishonored token from Kachiko.
At this point in time, there's no way for her to get axed real.
Yeah.
Just because there's only one fate left for Kurai, and so it would be hard for him to set up a combo where she gets dishonored and he also has enough fate left for the noble second.
Yeah, very true.
So I think if you want to just get rid of numbers, then that's the best.
Yeah, for sure.
Bet you just go ahead and remove that the token from Kachiko. So it'll be Kurai's challenge now. We are fairly certain that this is Rally. Yeah. We could be surprised.
We could absolutely be shocked. We could be shocked. You have to treat it, though. If you are Kurai, you have to treat it as if it is Rally.
You have to treat it as if it's Rally, yeah. No matter what you're poking here. So
yeah. So,
even if it happens to be like a random fire province or something like that.
I think the very, very safe way of doing this is to just do a single, just assign the niece with a military conflict with whatever ring, one that's got honor on, fate on it, so void, and just go, yep, and that's it, and just assume, don't even bother trying to win this conflict, just poke, get rally resolved, so therefore you've got your full army to attack political.
Yeah. Alternatively, you can even send like the manipulator in or something like that. You can send the manipulator in on water, I guess, like military water.
Yeah, that's
what I think that's what he's gonna do here.
I think
military water.
That's perfect.
And that way you force, or it's more or less this illusion is guaranteed to be bad. Either you force it or it gets bad by the watering effect.
Yep. And it is rally.
Alright, so no scary surprises here.
Right.
Yeah, and alternatively, if there's no defense, you could just have a bonsai and then straight up win the game, right? I guess at that point, Subversive can go ahead and favorable ground something in.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. He flips it to political here.
Doesn't, I guess, but you don't use your court games here anyway.
No, you don't do anything here. You're doing this strictly to poke.
Yeah.
And that's it.
No, I'm saying that Subversive should not.
Oh, if you're Subversive, no.
No. You just let it happen. I would have probably sent my Illusionist in there because it's going to get bowed anyway, but it's probably not a huge deal.
Oh, well, he hasn't actually declared defenders yet.
I still, just thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean,
although,
at least if you put the Illusionist in, you win the.
Well, the other option here is you leave the Illusionist at home and you play an Assassination because you can. An Assassinating Manipulator would actually be really good here, and then you use your box immediately.
I think that's fine. I think either way, you sort of put yourself in a not so great.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Or yeah, you're not gonna be in a good position no matter what in the situation.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe you save your Assassinate for the opponent's Illusionist. I don't know.
Yeah, and so that's right now. So assuming that this conflict resolves as we anticipated to, where both the manipulator and the illusionist are bound. On pure political stats, Kurai right now has, what is this, 5, 8, 15, 17 to Subversive's 6. So that's a big number to overcome, especially in Scorpion where you don't have a lot of pumps.
Yep.
Okay, he is going to go for the assassination play here.
All right. This is actually a decent way to try and bait out a Forged as well.
Yeah, sure. If Forge is even going to be relevant in this conflict, okay, he is going to go ahead and Forge Edict here. That's number 2 for, right? Number 2.
Yeah. Look here. It's been 1,
Oh
2
no,
Forged.
this is censure to cancel it.
Oh no, that is horrible. Oh, that's fantastic.
Okay.
So that sticks. Well, I guess.
Sure. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Now you go ahead and box.
Yep.
I mean, there's a pass for Kurai anyway, so it didn't really matter that much. So this is actually kind of interesting because now Kurai needs to win on board. Otherwise, or he needs to win this conflict, otherwise he just dies.
Yep. Yeah, so I think an air ring's a really good option here, right? Because it's saying you've got to bring someone. Oh, you're saying that now there's actually a window for Subversive to win?
There's a window for Subversive to win. I don't think that he can win just based on raw stats alone, but you know, maybe he is still sitting on 5 fate and 9 cards in hand. We don't know what else could be in there. Maybe like ambush or something like that. I don't know. So like say he has another Cunning Magistrate in his hand. So he can go ahead and negate 3 stats from Kurai. So let's see, that'd be 9. Earlier we counted 17, right? So 17 minus 3 is 14. There's currently 9 for Subversive. Plus the favorite, I didn't count that either. That's 10, plus the Cunning Magistrate would be 12. So it'd be 14 to 12, and that's actually not enough to break.
This is the very, like, chunky maths part of the game at the end here. Okay, there is a lot of thought going into this, because I guess this is the crucial conflict. And we're just approaching our 3rd hour of the game. We've been at this for just about 2 hours. So these final games do allow players to really see the full extent of their deck and what can happen if you just abandon time and just really look at the long game. So this is kind of one of the differences between a lot of the Discord leagues and paper play. Both kind of highlight different aspects of the game. With paper play, you're concentrating on tiebreakers a lot, and that does influence your play style, and you're trying to close the game out as fast as you can, or making sure that by the end of that hour you've got tiebreakers. Whereas in this untimed format, you can take your time and figure out the best avenues to winning, and you are thinking about, you know, putting fate on your characters so you can stick around to turn 5+. I think this is only turn 5 anyway, right?
I believe so. I think this is yes, turn 5. But yeah, so Kurai now just got put in this position where he might actually be able to win. It's very tricky here. And actually the conflict is going to go to Subversive here, and Subversive can go ahead and make an Earth Ring, or sorry, an Air Ring.
What he can do, Subversive could potentially go for the Fire Ring here, right? And he could firing up to maybe... I'm just looking at where the potential honor losses are, right? I guess you do need to do air to put the pressure on.
Yeah, I think you need to protect air so that way Kurai can't attack.
Oh, and Kurai has not used his box either.
Oh, that is true too.
Yeah.
So that's one difficulty of it.
If he has a calling in favors in hand at the moment, you know, there is the Kachiko actually come. He's got the favorable ground too, so he can kind of feint, so he can attack with Kachiko, right? And then if things go pear-shaped, you can always favorable ground out. But attack with Kachiko attracts some defense. Hopefully only attracts one defender, sends them home. There's options, I guess.
There was still a Steward of Law.
Yeah, there's a Stewie floating around somewhere.
Available for both players, or not for Kurai anymore because he doesn't have any fate.
Yeah,
okay. That's because he put a Cloud the Mind on the Soshi Illusionist. Okay. Oh yeah, he could have used that to get rid of that honor token on Kachiko. It's been sitting there, sort of not doing anything so far.
Right.
And Subversive is gonna go ahead and attack. He's gonna attack Upholding Authority.
He's doing air, so this is he realizes his big sort of play. Now, if you're Kurai, you must defend with 2 people here. If he defends with 1, it may be game over, but we'll see.
Well, I'm trying to think of it if there's any way for him. Oh my god, he's putting Kachiko in too.
Well, I guess Kurai figures that if he's gonna lose, it'll be this conflict. Wow.
Whoa.
Overcommitment. This is an overcommitment to defense. There is actually quite a lot of challenges here for Kurai, because he has 2 Dishonored characters in play. So if he over-defends and then fails to break the province, he's going to lose the game.
Right, and so if you're going to put this many characters in, you have to be damn sure that you're going to win that conflict on political when you swing.
Or at least do a firing.
He defended with 12!
Holy moly. Wow.
He had the favorable ground too, right? So, like...
Oof.
This is just wild. So now Subversive can go ahead and pull Kachiko out. I don't think he's gonna win this game.
What a crazy like potential final turn for this game. They've waited for the 3rd hour to bring out all the big stops.
Now Kachiko's gonna be able to protect him from this. This is just bizarre to me, honestly, because I think you would have been safe here if you just put the niece and like
instead of 2 characters.
Well, like, because, like, okay, so, like, why do you have to do 2 characters in this situation?
Because
what are you afraid of?
What you're afraid of is that if you only send one character, you're calling in favors to get rid of the Cloud the Mind, which is exactly what he's doing here, and use Kachiko to send him home, and then you lose because of the airing and unopposed.
Right, okay.
Yep. However, what we may find is there might be a Kami Unleashed in Subversive's deck.
Wait, he took the Cloud the Mind off the Illusionist?
Whoa. What is going on here? Off the Soshi Illusionist, not the Kachiko.
Okay.
There is this is with the game plan in mind, because we're both here sitting not seeing either of their hands, but we thought the Kachiko would be the obvious choice here.
Well, so I guess here's the benefits of now you can use the Illusionist to take the honor token off of this Kachiko, win the conflict. But then that means that if he wants to win the conflict, then he has to leave his own Kachiko in. Yep. So I don't.
God, maybe there's a Kami Unleashed, man. Maybe there's a Kami Unleashed, but that's not going to be enough for Kami Unleashed because he's got. Well, it will be enough.
If he uses Kami Unleashed, then he has the opportunity to box right here, right? So
he does, but what it does, yeah, that's true. Wow. Kurai passes. What an exciting end this is. So, Kurai has to break, right? Because at 1 honor here, if he steals an honor, he still has to fire up one of his characters, right?
Yeah, so he has to attack firing here.
Yeah.
That is just bizarre.
Why should probably box now. If I'm Kurai, I'm probably going to just in case, I'm just going to probably bow that City the open hand. I feel like that's a positive move. Mm. I don't like being at 1 honor.
Yeah, just take the pressure off yourself for a hot second at least. Die until at least then turn. Oh, but God. Man, like that is just weird. I don't know.
So keep in mind, this political conflict, there's not much skill on the table for Kurai, and he's got no fate.
Well, he has enough to break though, because Subversive. Well, actually, no, he doesn't have enough to break. Because Kurai has the favor, or Subversive has the favor,
And he can
so
favorable
right now
ground in.
on board he has, on board he has 5.
And I think the hot ticket here as well is when you declare. I mean, I guess the thing is, right? He needs to go for fire so he doesn't lose the game. But I feel like Void is also really good if he can find a way. If he's really aggressive, he'll go for Void if he thinks he can just take it now. Because I think the challenge is the first action that I would do if he just sends everybody at the box. First action as Subversive is you want to play your court games to force Aramoro to get dishonored. I guess like if there's a return court games, it doesn't really matter. But how many court games has been played so far by either side?
One each.
One each. Okay, so they've probably both got one in hand. Yeah, so that might just cancel each other out.
He's gonna go for fire.
Yeah,
This is the conservative play.
It's the yeah. Wow. I think you leave favored niece at home, right?
Yes.
For the favor purposes. And then you've got a. I wonder what the purpose there is.
What's the point?
I guess if he's got a court games, but I guess the opponent's gonna have a court games too. I guess. Yeah, this is tough. This is really, really tough.
What's the point? I mean, I guess. Well, okay. I guess his thought is okay. Either win or lose the game right here. On this conflict.
So he has exactly enough to break. The favorable grounds will change that.
Yes. Hopefully, he's taking that into consideration in his.
You do have to before your favorable grounds. You'll want to play your own court games first, because otherwise, what can happen is Kurai can play his court games. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter too much. Cunning Magistrate. Oh, that's a gut punch. That is a gut punch to Kurai. A huge gut punch. I feel like Subversive may have just taken this game.
So he has to have some kind of honor effect in his hand right now.
Yep. Wow. Topsy-turvy. I thought that this turn, I thought it was Kurai's. I thought victory was within his grasp. But Subversive is finding a way. What can Kurai play here? He's got a court games and just hope his opponent doesn't have one.
Oh no, he has nothing. He miscalculated.
Wow, what a game. What an amazing end. What a crazy end to that game. I think Subversive is thinking he's getting off very, very lightly here. Very, very lucky indeed after that big mistake for the mark of shame. What can we say? That is amazing.
Wow. definitely a very very close game there.
Both wishing each other well. Well played on both sides there. Well played, GG. Well, that was an amazing game, and that's the end of the first of the top 8 matches for Australian Discord League Season 5. Subversive lamenting the second hour went downhill. But then he did manage to bring it back in the end. That was a very bizarre game. Mirrored game, both players playing almost exactly the same decks. Well, thank you very much for co-casting with me, Handsome Dan, who you can catch
not a problem.
on many other casts around the place. Just go to the Discord League media channel in Global Discord League, and hopefully we can get you back again. So thank you.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and it was always a pleasure doing stuff with you guys. So.
No worries, Handsome Dan. We'll catch you all later. Until the next top 8 game. Thank you.